7th at 7:03 p.m. We've got a scout in the audience. Young man, could you come forward? You got some important duties to do. You didn't know you were going to get called on, did you? That's okay. Come on down. You're going to lead us all in the most important part of tonight's meeting, and that's the Pledge of Allegiance. So here's how it's going to work. Everyone's going to go ahead and come up front here, buddy. What's your name? Benjamin. All right. So everyone is standing behind you. You can trust me on that. You don't need to try to look. We're going to turn around and face the flag and get set. It's going to go real quiet. Everyone's going to wait for you. Once you start the pledge, everyone will join in. Sound good? All right. Floor is yours, buddy.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Fantastic job. Good job, buddy. All right. First item on our agenda are special presentations. Michelle. Yeah, do you get anything extra for doing the pledge? Probably not. No. Well, you do for us. There you go. Michelle, do we have any special presentations tonight? All right, so we're going to go ahead and go up to our next item is our Parker Chamber of Commerce updates. Is there anyone here from the Parker Chamber?
Omar.
I know.
Mark Castillo, 12509 Prince Creek Drive, Parker, Colorado. Mayor and Town Council, thanks for having us tonight. Just a couple quick updates of some fun stuff we've got coming up. So we just recently did another wine walk a couple weeks back. Brought in another phenomenal group of people down to downtown Parker that probably don't get a chance to come down there. After we did the event, I actually went down to Parker Garage to hang out with a few folks that worked the event with me and spoke to 3 different people that have said that this is the part of Parker they love. And, without some of these things that we get to do downtown, they don't get to see some of the stuff that's happening downtown. So that's always nice to hear. So did that. The other thing we recently just did re-sign our contract with Dean and Peg Minos, who also did Parker Days for us last year. So it's been really nice and a huge privilege and honor to work with them. As many of you know, they put on the Taste of Colorado in the past and other big events. So they know what they're doing, and it's been a privilege and an honor to work with them, with their mindset, with the way they run events. So I know they've really enjoyed working with you guys. So thank you for doing that. And then last but not least, I just wanted to give you a quick update on an event that we've got coming up on Thursday, November 7th from 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Deep Space. We're going to do the Parker Sip and Shop. It's an annual event we've been doing probably the last 3 or 4 years. We've switched it up over the years. One year we did it at the Pay Center. Last year we decided to do it at the Music on Main Street parking lot. And this year we're going to put it at Deep Space. So Ray and Antoinette have been, they gave us the opportunity to be able to use the basement downstairs. And there'll be booth vendors and there'll be shop local artisans and vendors, door prizes, giveaways, jewelry, home accessories, items like that. So that is on Thursday, November 7th, again, 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. So hopefully we'll see you there buying all your Christmas presents, and as always, keep it local. So you guys know the drill and show up and support local folks. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Any questions for me?
Council, any questions for Omar? No?
Cool.
Thank you very
All right,
much.
thanks for all you guys do. Thanks.
All right, next up, we've got Downtown Business Alliance updates. Mrs. Mango.
I don't have any notes. I'm not going to read really fast this time.
Okay.
Last time I was in front of you, I read really fast and ran out of time. So I won't do that tonight. I'm ad-libbing everything tonight. So a couple things that we have going on. We have a chili cook-off, our second annual chili cook-off that's coming up on October 20th in the parking lot of Music on Main Street. Last year, we had over 400 people that attended this and it was our first one. We threw it together. It was awesome. We had 30 participants that had their chilies tasting, and that will happen again this year. We're super excited because we think second annuals always get better than first annuals, is our hope. We already have lots of enthusiasm about attendees coming to taste the chili. This is a really fun event. We're going to have it on Music on Main Street parking lot again from 11 till 4. We extended it an hour because everyone wanted to stick around. We do have live music that's playing, and the new aspect of our chili cook-off is we're having our own 4 local breweries doing their tasting. So it's going to be a chili and brew cook-off, taste-off. So people will be able to vote for their favorite craft breweries that are from Los Dos Patrios, Barnett and Sons, Downhill Brewery, and Welcome Home Brewery. Those are our four local Parker breweries that will be a part of our chili cook-off this year. So we're super excited. So make sure you spread the word. Come on down. On October 20th, go to the farmers market first, and then come into our chili cook-off. It'll be a really fun event. The other thing that I just wanted to make sure that you all knew is that we have 5 members of our board that are up for re-election and or deciding whatever they else want to do on our Downtown Business Alliance. We'll be voting between November and January. We have a couple ways that we're going to get feedback from all of our DBA members because not everybody comes to all of our DBA meetings. So I just want to make sure you knew that there may be a change of guard. You may not see my face anymore, may or may not, with the Downtown Business Alliance, but my heart and soul is committed to this since I started it with the Chamber and with Josh 5 years ago. That's how we started the Downtown Business Alliance, and I will continue, no matter what position I serve in, will continue to serve and do whatever I can to better everybody in downtown Parker because it's a passion of mine. So that's it. Just want to let you know about our election and go to our chili cook-off, please. And do you have any questions?
What's
Council?
the most important thing about the chili cook-off?
What's the most important thing?
Yes,
It's not on.
Is what?
the Broncos.
What's not?
Oh,
what's
the
not happening
Broncos
that
are
day?
not playing. They're playing on Thursday night, not that Sunday. So that's that we always schedule it based on the Broncos because we know how
You
important.
always,
it is.
you never want to break that rule. Don't schedule it on Broncos.
Yeah, and I can't be as funny as Chris Schnell, our vice chair of the DBA, where he goes, "The heat is on," or whatever he does. He's just a comedian. So I can't, I don't have that comedic nature in me, I suppose. But anyways, it'll be a really fun event. We have, live music, local. All we want to focus on is local citizens giving their best chili recipe, local breweries, showing off what they do best as well. So please come on down.
Excellent.
Kelly, can you tell people how they get tickets and how much they are?
Well, thank you, Debbie. That's a really important part. Go to www.downtownparker.com and find Chili Cook-Off. And either A, you can click on participant and sign up to show off your recipe. And it has all the requirements, and it's free to do it. So if you have a stellar recipe, you should show up. And to come as a participant to taste, a taster, the tickets are $10 each, and it's a great event where you come in and you can buy tickets for beer tasting if you want to after you enter the door. But to enter the event, it's $10 each, and it's both of those options are in our website. And that reminds me, make sure you go to downtownparker.com and sign up for The Beat, which is the weekly announcement of everything that's happening in downtown Parker, whether it's from Deep Space to Studio at Main Street to tailgate events to all of our shops and all of our great sole proprietorships that are in downtown Parker having specials. You get an email once a week on Wednesdays to find out about what's happening in downtown Parker. It's easy. Sign up for it. It's once a week. It's not spam, just once a week. Thank you, Debbie, for reminding me about that. Any other
questions, guys? No?
Thank you,
All right. Thank you
everyone,
very
for
much.
everything that you do. I appreciate all of you.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. All right, next up is our general public comment. This is an opportunity for you guys to come up and address council for items that are not currently on our agenda. If you're here for an item that is on our agenda, there'll be an opportunity for public comment on those items. There's a 3-minute time limit. You'll notice up above me, there's a clock that says 3 minutes, and I've got one on the back wall as well. We've got 3 people signed up for general public comment, and the way it'll work is I'll call you up. You're going to start your talking. I'll hit the button to start the timer. When it gets down to 3, I'll thank you and invite the next person up. We have a 30-minute time limit at the beginning of council. If there's still public comment needed after that 30-minute time frame, it will be heard at the end of council for as long as needed. So with that, we'll open up public comment at 7:12 p.m. And the first one we have is Joy Overbeck. And you don't have to do your name and address since I've got it on the sheet that you signed up for. So
Okay,
you can
great.
just jump right into it.
Good evening. I'm here to protest, I don't know if it's still on the consent agenda or not, Resolution 19-087, which has recently been introduced here to the council, I think probably just last Friday. It's unclear whether or not this resolution applies to us as petitioners, as the Citizens Committee that's petitioning, or whether it applies to people who would be challenging the signatures on our petitions. It's really not important which it applies to, because your revision of the Colorado Revised Statutes provides that a protest to the town clerk's finding of petition insufficiency must be made within 10 days of the filing of the petition, which for our particular petition is this Wednesday. Your revision of the statute also requires that the protests be made within that same 10 days from the filing of the petition, which on the face of it is preposterous, because nobody can know whether we're talking about the people opposed to our petition or we, the Citizens Committee that is proposing the petitions. Nobody can know why we would protest anything or why they would protest anything unless and until the town clerk declares the sufficiency or insufficiency of the petitions. Therefore, this needs further clarification. It's ridiculous to put something like this on the consent agenda since it's so completely unclear and gives us exactly 0 days to protest. I would like to point out that Mayor Wade had written one of our committee members here just at 3 o'clock this afternoon and told him that he was misinterpreting this resolution. And he said, "It seems to me you should be supportive of this resolution as it actually decreases the amount of time that those that are opposed to the Pace Lot 2 and Pine Curve petitions have to protest the contents of the petitions once you turn them in." I'd like to make it clear that we in this committee are interested in fairness and equity. We are not interested in having an advantage over those who would protest our signatures. So it's just absurd to pass something like this without huge amount of public comment, because this is a gigantic change, and as I say, allows either side 0 time to protest the petition signatures and the petition information. So this needs public comment. This needs considerable intelligent examination, because I think your verbiage here is wrong, and I think your intent here is wrong, and we want to have the same chance. We want the people who are against us to have the same chance to challenge signatures. We don't want to have an advantage. We don't want them to have an advantage.
Thank you, Joy. Okay, next up, we've got Alita Yu. Please come on down. And again, you don't need to do name and address. I've got it up here, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing us to have public comment. Good evening. After 32 years as senior administrator and professor in higher education, I retired and moved to Parker to be near my grandchildren in September of 2013. I'm here to protest Resolution 19-087. This resolution, submitted by Kristen Schledarn, Deputy Town Attorney, is clearly a sign of desperation and an attack to subvert the due process that we the people have as taxpayers in the town of Parker. I don't blame Ms. Schledarn, and sorry for bastardizing your last name. People have trouble pronouncing my last name, so, but I don't blame you for submitting this resolution. But there must be tremendous pressure from developers, Jim Maloney, our mayor, the majority of our town council members, who support the development of Pine Curve to the tune of millions of dollars. In the end, it is all about the money, isn't it? Forget the needs and desires of the citizens of Parker. Whatever it takes to ram this development down our throats, whether we agree with it or not, legalistic techniques are being employed to subvert the will of the people. So now we come to Resolution 19-087. The state of Colorado CRS 31-11-110 allows 40 days after petition filing for a protest to be filed. Resolution 19-087 seeks to shorten that time period based on my reading of that resolution to 10 days. The resolution, and I would like to underscore what Ms. Overbeck had said, that there needs to be more clarification because I think there's a lot of confusion to obfuscate this resolution so that we can clearly define what does it mean and what are the ramifications for it. The resolution further states that, quote, the town clerk shall forthwith mail a copy of such protest to the petitioners committee and to the protester, together with a notice fixing a time for hearing such protests that is not less than 3 nor more than 7 days after such notice is mailed. This resolution is clearly being rushed through at the expense of due process in order to comply with the timelines contained in the purchase agreement for Pine Curve. If this resolution is passed, it will only confirm to many Parker residents that the majority of our town council members have become puppets by kowtowing to the needs and wishes of developers. It speaks to a lack of moral integrity and a complete disregard to have the voices of Parker citizens be heard by shortening the protest petitioning process and putting this issue on the ballot in 2020. In the words of Lord Acton, quote, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. With this power, it appears that the majority of our town council members have sold out to the interests of developers.
Thank you, Ms. Liu. Your time is up. We'll go
I pray
ahead
to
and
God that you prove me
we'll
wrong.
go ahead and invite Corey Poindexter up, please. And likewise, Mr. Poindexter, we don't need your name and address. We've got it on the sheet that you signed up for.
I don't really want to waste the council's time. I'm sorry, I thought I heard something. I don't want to waste the council's time. I just wanted to make it known that I was here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. He just wanted to make a note that he was here. Yep, so he's got it on. All right, so we had the sheets that are signed up, and I know this is a new policy, so we've still got some time, and I see there's a few others. Just for everyone's reference point going forward, the sheet to sign up for public comment is available 30 minutes before the town council meeting, so you can come up from 6:30 to sign up to speak. And so since not everyone's used to the procedure, I see we've got a young man here ready to speak. You turned in your little sheet. So since you're not on here, go ahead and come on up. If you could state your name and address for the record, though, and the same rules apply as that I spoke before.
Thank you, Mayor Wade. My name is Albert Thompson, 11198 Cambridge Court, Parker. I'm here to ask the town council to postpone action on that resolution 19087. If you take action on it tonight, you will confirm to many of us that town council has no respect for our First Amendment rights to free speech. You want to limit us in any way that you can possibly do to a reduction of our free speech rights by preventing us from adequate time to respond to any proposals or on our petitions. And I think that what it will end up doing to town council is reduce your confidence in the citizenship. If you look forward to a third term, as I'm sure many of you do because you put that on the ballot this coming November, many of us who are considering how to vote on that particular issue will say, we don't want people on the town council who don't respect the citizens' rights. And therefore, the likelihood of that proposal for town council members and the mayor to have a third term is unlikely to be passed. So I would ask very respectfully that you simply postpone action on that particular resolution so that we can have a full hearing and we understand it and there's a chance for public comment on it after everybody has a chance to understand it, because right now it's been proposed within the past few days, and no one really has a clear understanding of what the intent or what the results of passing that resolution will be. Thank you, Mayor Wade, and thank you, council members.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, is there anyone else wishing to address council in public comment? Come on down. Do you have, make sure that you get that little slip of paper over them so that we can get it on them. You're fine, but just make sure before you go. And then again, just in the future, you can sign up on the sheet beforehand. There you go. Name and address for the
Sorry,
record,
I didn't
please.
see him.
You're
give
fine.
the slip. So I've always stood
Actually,
up-
name and address for the
Shelley
record.
Mango, 8632 East Thunderbird Road, Parker, Colorado. Lived in Parker for 23 years. 23 years. And when I first came to Parker, downtown Parker was a ghost town. And I know everyone has seen me as the DBA president most recently when I stand up here. I'm standing up here as a citizen that sees the changes that have been so positive in our downtown area. I understand the concerns that were just expressed by other people, and I do believe that you all will make a unified judgment call. You have to. And I believe you'll put heart and soul into it. But I want to say that I completely stand by the idea of vibrancy in any downtown USA, downtown Main Street USA. I need to be a citizen that finally speaks up, not just as someone else you've seen me speak, but somebody that used to come down here 20 years ago and there was nothing. Absolutely nothing. And we have, with all of the residential growth that we've seen, we need to have as much to offer our residents, that have been growing throughout the town of Parker. Something fun, something cool. If you go across Main Street USA, there is nowhere in Main Street USA that has open space. It's buildings, it's vibrancy, it's on Main Street. There's plenty of open space in Parker, Colorado, and on Main Street it should be fun activities and vibrancy and restaurants and fun things. And this is how I feel, and I've lived here for 23 years. I don't know how long everybody else has lived here, and some people have lived here just as long as I have, but I remember coming down to what I considered a ghost town on Main Street. And I am so proud and happy to see the things that go on in downtown Parker, and I support everything about vibrancy in downtown Parker. I just wanted everybody to know that.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else wishing to address council? Okay. Okay. Name and address for the record, please.
Terry Dodd, you just like to hear me say Marlboro, 11450 Marlboro Drive. Everyone on the council, I believe, has seen my email that I posted to the elected at parkeronline.org, so I won't try to reiterate that. I don't have the time. I would like to address some of the points that Mayor Wade supplied to me in an email response to that. I made no assumption as to who would receive a protest if filed in my email. I fully understood what the statute 3111-110 state statute means and what it says. It applies equally to both petitioners and non-petitioners, so I'm here to object to item H on the consent agenda. It shouldn't be on a consent agenda for starters, but it shouldn't exist at all because it does, in fact, step on unalienable rights of citizens of the town. And I don't care whether they're a petitioner or not a petitioner because I will defend a non-petitioner's rights as quickly as I will defend someone of my own opinion. This is an abuse of power, and it needs to stop. I don't know how I can express it any stronger. I can tell you that I feel strong enough about it that if it goes to court, I'll be there. It needs to stop. I think I've said enough.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else wishing to address council? Okay. You can go ahead and give your little sheet of paper over. That'd be great. Name and address for the record, please.
Mike Rouchet, 11425 East Regency Court, Parker. I am here tonight because I don't think resolution number 19087 should be on the consent agenda. I think it needs to be pulled off the consent agenda and discussed so that everyone here can understand the motivation for it, the concept behind it, and the practical application of it. And then everyone can make a judgment. But so I would ask you to pull it off the consent agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Anybody else wishing to address council? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment at 7:28 p.m. and move on to reports, items, and comments from mayor and council. Mr. Dyack. Pulled an audible. Start on the other side.
Thank you. Okay, I've been gone a while, so I apologize. But I was at the International Bridge, Tunnel, and Turnpike Association. I'm a board member for E470. E470 has a commitment to educate their board members. So they take us to the annual conference so we can immerse ourselves in world-class experts so we can understand a little bit about tolling and what they do over there at E470. Councilmember Lewis and myself attended the Cultural Commission meeting. We talked about visioning as well as programming for the 2020-2021 season over at Pace. With Councilmember Councilmember Williams, who is not here, we had some budget prep in advance of our budget retreat a few Fridays ago, if I'm not mistaken, 2 Fridays ago. I also attended an investment advisory committee meeting. We have 2 citizens that are within the financial community who meet with our financial advisor on our excess funds here at the town to ensure that they are complying with our policy and to ask questions. Happy to report everything was A-OK. Attended the Republican breakfast where I saw District Attorney Brockler talk about Proposition CC. Mayor, that's all.
Okay. Debbie.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Tobark and I attended the Parks and Recreation Liaison meeting this afternoon, and all of the pickleball advocates out there will be happy to know that we're getting netting on the outdoor court out at the rec center, so it'll be less confusion with balls going back and forth. There's improvements being made to the Auburn Hills, Bradbury Hills Park that they expect for landscaping and signage, because there's really no signage there currently, and the trails, those improvements to potentially be completed by the fall of 2020. H2 O'Brien is being renovated. They hope to have to start in the next few weeks. The building interior will be completely redone at H2O O'Brien. The exterior will remain the same, but the interior, I believe it's 18 years old. That will be done, and hopefully maybe will be open around Memorial Day of this next year. The playground equipment at O'Brien Park, just to the west of H2O O'Brien, that we've hired the landscape architect for that particular playground scenario, and maybe in later fall of 2020 or early 2021, we'll have new, really attractive equipment for young people and children, and maybe even some that will be improved enough that grandparents and parents can use some of the equipment along with their children while their children are doing that. Also, the Trails of Crowfoot, their community park there is about 15 acres of space that is being used. I think it was about 18 originally, but a component of that will be the swimming pool area, and the development, the HOA will take care of that. The town will maintain the rest of that, and that will start in early 2021. Also today, for the first time, I had the privilege of being here along with the mayor, our town administrator, the chief of police, and I got to do a field trip, or the field trip came here. It was 3 different classes of third graders, so the entire auditorium here was full. And I got to, my particular part, and I told them that the only thing older, that I was going to talk about something that, the only thing in this building that was older than I. So the parents that attended and the teachers, they got it. So needless to say, I did the Stonegate Mammoth. So children really enjoyed it. We went over our time frame somewhat, but once the mayor gets to talking, you know how it is. It was really fulfilling, and it's something that we're putting on a calendar so the schools in third grade, it'll be third grade classes because they are the ones who are studying Colorado history. So they'll have an opportunity to sign in for this type of field trip the second Wednesdays of the months. So other than what Councilman Dyak has already said, that's it.
Okay, Mr. Toborg.
Let's see, I have, in addition to the Parks and Recreation Liaison today, and I think Debbie might have mentioned, but for O'Brien Park, we're looking at changing it up, renewing it for accessibility, and that we're going to be looking at fall of 2020.
Yep.
So Jim Cleveland, wherever he's at, promised not to shut it down during the summer of 2020, but we'd go to fall. Okay, so no letters, no phone calls on that. Let's see, also did Parker Chamber Liaison on the 24th. And Omar, on behalf of you and your team, thank you. I think it's a great step that you signed the contract with Dean and Peg and the professional organization to make sure Parker Days comes off without a hitch in 2020. I think that's an excellent move. And then lastly, we all attended the council budget retreat last week, and a good time was had by all. That's all I got. You went there.
Yeah.
You know.
Cheryl.
I'm a liaison, Douglas County Housing Authority, and it looks like they're going to be starting a project at Meridian Village. And they also have a senior complex that is being completed at Town Center in Highlands Ranch. And they also are working on projects in Castle Rock.
Okay. Josh.
Couple things. Almost a week ago, Tuesday, we did the Douglas County Youth Congress down at the state capitol. 130-odd kids down at the capitol, discussed 8 topics, listened to a few groups in the morning session. Oasis out of Thunder Ridge High School is a student support group that came from one student's suicide. They got their motivation by attending Youth Congress. Sources of Strength is a peer-to-peer support organization, again, motivation from Youth Congress. And then, I forgot the last one now, shoot. Anyway, it was a fabulous Congress, 8 wonderful topics, or 8 hard topics, to be frank, to discuss, and the kids, again, they'll surprise you. They are really some intelligent minds, and they have some really good ideas, everything from transportation to vaping to whatever affects their daily lives. And it was just a fascinating Congress, and they'll be presenting to different appropriate boards and commissions their ideas. And hopefully coming out of this, as Mayor Wade and I have been trying to do, is to form a youth council. So I talked to quite a few Parker kids, and there's some Parker kids interested in sitting up here on one evening a month maybe and discussing topics that affect them. So hopefully that'll be a big win coming out of that. And then I had the, obviously, budget retreat, but I had the honor of attending the State of the Town for Castle Rock. Mayor Jason Gray, a friend of mine, a local purveyor of beans. He
What kind of beans?
he might sell coffee beans also. We're working on the Lone Tree, Monk and Mongoose. They need to run for office. And we got the trifecta. Anyway, he did a State of the Town. Great job, great presentation, lots of videos, Mr. Cleveland, lots of videos. Really, really good. They at build out will be 150,000. They are already at 70,000. So I'm wondering if Nick can do a story on We Are Not Castle Rock. Since Elizabeth's doing a story on We Are Not Parker, we'll just pass it on. No, but really, really good State of the Town, and they've got a good council who doesn't always get along, but they get a lot of stuff done together. So,
A couple things for me. It goes along with one of the things Josh just mentioned from the Youth Congress. just for everyone to kind of keep in mind, as a lot of you guys know, I have two sons, one's who's 19, one's almost 19, one's almost 21, both went through Ponderosa. Young man who was aged between the two of them just passed away directly from vaping. And so the CDC and the FDA has now gotten involved. He, on September 6th, I think, went into cardiac arrest, and specifically from his Juul. And it was interesting because I had a conversation with my boys about smoking and vaping and so on. And, not to put too fine a point on it, I don't think there's anyone in existence anymore who thinks smoking is good for you per se, but smoking is a slow, long death where the vaping thing, and I say this from a standpoint of when my youngest was 9, he was in children's for a week because we almost lost him from an asthma attack, pneumonia, and H1N1. So it's a very serious thing. So please have those discussions with your family in regards to vaping. Today, as Councilwoman Lewis mentioned, we had the third graders here from Pine Grove Elementary. It's always a fun thing to have all the kids here on a field trip and talk to them about their role in government and as citizens. For those who don't know, on the second Thursday of every month at 4 p.m. in these chambers, I hold Scouts Night with the mayor. So if you know scouts, other scouts that want to have their requirements that they need to get, but they don't want to come to an actual council meeting, it's the second Thursday of every month. They can call the front desk and get their name on the list, or just show up. If they get their name on the list ahead of time, you get a nice certificate and all that kind of jazz. And last but not least, if you've been living under a rock for the last 2 days, here's the information for you. It's going to be cold this Thursday. It's going to be really, really, really cold. Please go blow out your sprinklers if you can. If you can't get someone over to do it, at least go put a bucket under the drain in your basement, close the water valve, open the little thing, let it drain, because inevitably there's people on every street that a few days after a hard freeze, their atmospheric pressure valve busts, and it's a lot of effort and work, so please do that.
And disconnect your water hoses.
And disconnect your water hoses. Wrap them up. Do whatever you need to do. All right. Next item on our agenda is our consent agenda. Consent agenda items are considered to be routine, will be enacted with one motion and one vote unless a council member votes to have an item removed for individual discussion. Ordinances on the consent agenda are for introduction only and will not be removed for discussion. Council, in front of you, you have consent agenda items 7A through 7H.
Mayor and council, I move to remove item number resolution 19-087 from the consent agenda.
Which is item H, correct? Yes.
Yes.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Cheryl and a second for Jeff, for the removal of item H. Just as a point of procedure, what would happen if this is voted in the affirmative, it will be pulled off, and then we'll need a motion for the other items, and then we will come back to item H. So as soon, you should have a vote box pop up for you here in just a second. There you go. And my big screen over here is not on, so I don't know the results.
Oh. I don't think.
None of our screens are on, so.
Is it turned
Oh,
on?
there we go, just came on. Motion passes unanimously. So council, in front of you, you have consent agenda items.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve consent agenda items A through G, please.
Second?
We have a motion from Josh and a second from Debbie on consent agenda items 7A through 7G. And in just a sec, your vote boxes will pop up for that. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. So for consent agenda item 7H, this is resolution number 19-087. This is a resolution to establish an initiative or referendum petition protest procedure. Kristen, you're going to lead the presentation.
I am. Mayor and Council, just to give you a little background, one of my jobs as the Deputy Town Attorney is to protect the processes that the town undertakes. And as you can imagine, city staff and the Town Attorney's Office is anticipating that possibly a large number of petition signatures will be submitted to the town later this week. And as part of that, we have been undergoing extensive preparation to begin the review of those petitions. And as we were doing that, we noticed a discrepancy between the town charter and state statute. One of the challenges of my job, and one of the things that makes it interesting, is that I frequently have to reconcile federal law, state statute, and our home charter, and sometimes they conflict, and sometimes they provide different direction, and this is one of those cases. And so this resolution tonight was brought to address that before those petitions were filed, so that we weren't in a position where we were having to have uncertainty in the process or defending a process later. So let me explain to you what the statute provides with respect to review of the petitions and the protest procedures. If we did not have a home rule charter, the statute would provide that the clerk, when the petitions are submitted, would have 30 days to review that petition. Once she determines that those are sufficient, she would submit a certificate of sufficiency to the council, and the statute provides that the council must act on that petition promptly. It does not establish a certain date by which you must take action, but you would need to either adopt the ordinance or submit the question to the ballot in a prompt manner. The statute also provides that there's a protest procedure, and that procedure provides that someone can protest the contents of the petition, meaning they're unhappy with the circulator's affidavit. They think that that was done incorrectly. It wasn't notarized correctly. Or there's a signature on there that they see their signature and they know they didn't sign the petition, so they think there might be fraudulent signatures on there. Something about the contents of the petition. That's what the protest procedure is. The statute provides that there's 40 days for someone to submit those protests to the town clerk, and then she holds a hearing on that protest and issues decisions, and there are timelines outlined in there. We, however, have a charter provision, and it's very specific. In the event that an initiative petition is submitted, it provides much shorter time periods, and that is where the challenge, that was the challenge facing the town attorney's office and the clerk's office. Section 14.4 of the charter provides that when the petitions are submitted, the town clerk has only 10 days to review those petitions for sufficiency, and she issues either a certificate of sufficiency or a certificate of insufficiency. If she submits a certificate of sufficiency, it is provided to you immediately, and you then have 30 days to act on that petition. You have to pass an ordinance, either rezoning the property to open space in the case of these petitions, or call an election and submit those questions to the electors for a election that must be held then within 30 to 90 days after that. So you can imagine the challenge of, we could have petitions submitted, 10 days later she issues the certificate of sufficiency, and you must act within 30 days. That means we have to have an ordinance with 2 readings. It could likely be less than 30 days. It probably would be somewhere between 14 and 21 days in which you would be calling an election, and the questions would be submitted to the ballot. If we did not modify the protest procedure that's contained in the statute, it means that you could have called an election and submitted the questions to the voters, and we would still be receiving protests on those petitions, which could put us in a very awkward position of perhaps those questions should have never been submitted to the voters, or we're holding an election and then we're telling you not to count the ballots because they were the questions should have never been submitted to the voters. That was the type of situation that I was trying to avoid. I can see that being very frustrating to the electors of the town of Parker. I will also say that the charter provides a provision for the petitioner's committee to appeal a decision of the town clerk that the petitions were insufficient. And there's a process in there in section 14.4. It's a separate process from the protest procedure. This resolution is not changing the appeal rights of the petitioner's committee for the review by the clerk of whether the petitions are sufficient or not. That appeal comes directly to town council, and there's a procedure in there. It does not touch that procedure. And then if they're not happy with the decision that you render, there's another appeal procedure to the court of law. So those rights are absolutely protected. This resolution does not touch that at all. I can't imagine why the petitioner's committee would want to utilize the protest procedure, because essentially they would be telling the clerk that the petitions they had submitted had fraudulent signatures or incorrect affidavits. I can't even imagine a situation where someone on the petitioner's committee would be using the protest procedures that this resolution is adopting tonight. So that is the background. I'm trying to shorten the time period so that the protests can be handled within the time period that is required by our charter for the town clerk to review the petitions and for you to act on those petitions if they're determined to be sufficient, so that we can have certainty in the process and everyone can feel good about the outcome, whatever it may be.
Okay. Council, do you have any questions for Kristen? Josh first, then Cheryl.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, we cannot extend to match the statute from the state law because the law, the 10 days and the 30 days is written in our charter, and the charter can only be corrected by or amended by the people.
Correct. You would have to submit a charter amendment to the electors, and we could extend those days to match the statute, but that would require an election, and that could be something we could look at, but it could not happen until the next election when you would submit charter amendments.
So we can then create an ordinance that shortens that to align better with our chartered days.
Yes, so the statute specifically provides that we can amend the procedures that are provided in the statute by charter, by ordinance, or by resolution. We can do it any of those ways.
Cheryl.
Okay, so I see an inconsistency here. You've got 10 days to approve or disapprove the sufficiency of the petitions, and a protest also has to occur within that same time frame, even though they don't know whether or not this petition has been proven one way or the other.
They're not protesting the sufficiency of the petition, they're protesting specific contents of the petition. So it would be, and the statute and the resolution both say specific things like the circulator's affidavit. If there's some defect in the circulator's affidavit, it's not notarized correctly, it's not filled out correctly, it's dated 2018 instead of 2019, or if there's a signature, the process speaks about they need to refer specifically to the petition and signature line number. So if it's that someone signed my name, that's not my signature. I want to protest the inclusion of my fraudulent signature on the petition. That's what this process is for.
So this resolution is brought forth because it's not addressed in the charter. Is there an alternative resolution that you would find acceptable?
We could, I mean, absolutely, we can look at other ways to address this. We worked with the clerk's office to try and provide the most time that we could, but still be sure that we could handle protests in the time complying with the charter. So we feel like we have struck the balance of we couldn't provide 40 days, but we wanted to provide as much time as we could, and we thought lining 10 days up with 10 days so that she would not issue a certificate of sufficiency till the end of that 10th day, and she could say, no protesters came in, it's 4:55, I'm going to issue the certificate of sufficiency, and I can rest assured that no one is protesting the petitions that I'm certifying as sufficient.
Could you do 10 days for the sufficiency and 20 days for the protest? Because people maybe, whether it's this issue or another, somebody may want to evaluate what's there if they find that the finding of the sufficiency is not what they want.
We could, but then the certificate of sufficiency is somehow subject to a condition that, based on the outcome of a protest, and so it doesn't sort of provide certainty because we would be submitting that directly to council, and council wouldn't know the outcome of those protests.
Isn't that exactly what state law offers, though?
Well, no, not necessarily, because that's what I was talking about with the promptness language in the statute. The clerk has 30 days in which to certify the sufficiency. There's 40 days to protest, but we could hold off on submitting an ordinance to you while those 10 days pass, because prompt we could determine to mean 60 days. So I think that there is leeway built into the statute that we're not going to ask you to look at an ordinance before we're sure the 40 days had passed under the statute. So I don't agree with that.
I'm just saying that if I see we've got 10 days here, by giving somebody the right to protest a few days after that finalization of that petition would match with what the state's doing, because the state gives you a 10-day option.
I still disagree, because the language in the charter is very specific with a number of days. The statute gives us leeway with a promptness language. And so I don't think that we should go beyond the 10 days, because our hands are tied by the charter about needing to get the ordinance on an agenda for you for first and second reading.
Hands are no more tied by the charter for what's being proposed for what could be an alternative.
I respectfully disagree.
If if we did extend the protest period, then aren't we also then extending against our charter the clerk's approval of 10 days? If she has to wait, if we extend it 15 days, then the clerk has to wait 15 days before she could submit a letter, and we are then going against our very charter.
It would be a difficult situation because she would be required to issue a certificate without knowing, and I suppose we might have to go through some process of rescinding the certificate or making the certificate conditional on the outcome of the protest. It introduces a level of uncertainty that I would prefer that you not have to deal with.
And our charter is our Constitution. We abide by the charter, and the charter is telling us 10 days and 30 days.
Yes.
The leeway we have is the protest period that we can create by resolution.
Correct.
Other questions? Just in terms of timeline, so petition filed on 10/9, right, no later than. So then the clerk's office has until 10/19 to issue a certificate, as well as the protests have to be all adjudicated, wrapped up by 10/19?
No, so she would issue the certificate, and I suppose if we had a protest, then we would have language in the certificate that it's being issued, and there's a protest, and this is the hearing. We would have a hearing date set, and so we would be able to wrap up the hearing though before it would come before you.
Okay. So then if we took it the way it stands today, with no other changes at the, 2 days before the petitions, it looks like the process with the petition itself is done 10/29, right? So we do a 10-day verification. On that day, the clerk submits a 2-day for you to, if you haven't cured it, you have a 2-day appeal process, and then you have 10 days from the time she issues that on the 19th to execute on that appeal, correct? I was trying to write really fast when we were walking through it, so.
Can you ask me the question and I will tell you the dates? Are you asking me if the petition is certified as sufficient? What are the dates?
So if petition is certified as not sufficient on the first time, the final day to have it through an appeals process and cured would be 10/29.
So I will tell you that so they have 10 days after they're submitted on October 9th, which falls on a Saturday. So under the statute, you go to the next Monday. So technically, she has till October 21st to certify that the petition is sufficient or insufficient. If
Okay.
she certifies on the 21st it's insufficient, then they have 10 days to cure it. But before that, within 2 days, they have to notify us that they intend to cure it.
Okay, so now we're running up to 10:30, I think.
10:31.
10:31.
10:31.
Okay, so then, but I guess my point is, if we let it go by way of what's currently in state statute, 11/28 would be the final day for petitions. That would be the 40th day from 10/9.
For protests? Mm-hmm. I haven't done that calculation.
Okay.
I don't know.
I've been trying to do it fast.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a little shorter than that, but close to it.
You think it's shorter than 11/28?
Yeah.
Okay.
If I run the numbers in
I don't know. I just, and I appreciate you finding this. I appreciate you at the moment trying to add some certainty to the process. I do. I have a problem with, yesterday the right was 40 days to protest, and now we've dropped it to 10. I think that's my fundamental concern, so.
Before,
But that's not
do you
it.
guys have
That's
any
not
questions
you.
for?
Yeah, appreciate that.
John? No. Cheryl?
So I want to go back to the cure process and the protest process. So the cure, if it's insufficient, would take us another 10 days after the declaration of sufficiency or insufficiency. But the protest process stops at the declaration period, right? So there's another 10 days it's not represented?
I did not follow that question. I'm sorry.
So you've got a protest period that starts from the time the petition is submitted to the time the clerk clarifies yes or no. But if they go through an amendment process, which adds another 10 days, what happens to the protest phase? Does it stop?
They had 10 days from the initial yes to protest.
So it stops with the clerk's deadline?
No, it stops on its own, 10 days.
Yeah, but it's the same deadline.
It's not.
I I don't know. You know, there might be another time when I want to protest something and I don't know exactly what's happening.
Okay. Other questions? Okay. Council, you have in front of you item 7H.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve Resolution 19-087.
Second.
We have a motion from Josh, and we have a second from Debbie. Council, in just a sec, your box will pop up to vote.
Mike?
Yep.
So can we, if, we're doing this because of an imminent ballot initiative, can we, I guess it's probably Kristen, can we still go back and make the amendments that Councilmember Pogue sort of asserted? This isn't something that's sort of memorialized. We can come and revisit this. And to me, it feels like this is happening because we want certainty of this specific issue. But to me, we can revisit this and create a more proper solution. We're just sort of constrained by where we're at now.
Correct. I was trying to address this before the petitions were filed this week to address this situation, but absolutely, we can come back, we can repeal this resolution, we can come back with an ordinance, we can establish more different procedures, robust procedures, we can look at a charter amendment to change the initiative timelines. So there's a whole host of options that we could look at, and I realize this timing is not ideal, but just trying to address the situation so that we're not dealing with it at an election time.
Okay. Council, you have a motion and a second in front of you.
Right.
Motion passes 3-2 with 2 noes from Cheryl Pogue and Jeff Toborg. Next item on our agenda is item 8A. Council, in front of you, you've got 8A is an E470 right-of-way northeast annexation and zoning. Council, there are 3 parts to this. I'm going to go ahead and read all 3 of them in, but they'll be presented with one presentation, but you will have to go through and have motions on each item separately. So what you have in front of you is E470 right-of-way northeast annexation and zoning. Item 8A1 is Resolution 19-060. This is a resolution to set forth Town Council's finding of fact and conclusions as to the eligibility of the E470 right-of-way northeast property for annexation into the Town of Parker. 8A2 is ordinance number 2.273 on second reading. This is a bill for an ordinance approving and accomplishing the annexation of contiguous unincorporated territory known as the E470 right-of-way northeast property in Douglas County. And item 8A3 is ordinance number 3.296.1 on second reading. This is a bill for an ordinance to amend zoning certain property within the Town of Parker, Colorado, known as the E470 right-of-way northeast property to PD Plan Development District pursuant to the Parker Land Development Ordinance and amending the zoning ordinance and map to conform therewith. And item 8A4, which is the annexation agreement. Now, I haven't looked up. Carolyn, are you going to lead us on all of them? All 4?
Yeah, they're all in one.
Bucket it all together. Go for it. Floor is yours.
Good evening, council members and mayor. The property that we will be reviewing this evening is a section of the E470 right-of-way and is generally located north of Cottonwood Drive and adjacent to Highlands at Kings Point Plan Development. The town is acting as applicant and representative for the E470 Highway Authority. The required public notice has been provided. The subject property is a 6.5-acre site comprised of 3 parcels. It is located within the town's municipal planning area in unincorporated Douglas County. Currently, the property is zoned A1 and is bordered on 3 sides by the town of Parker. The E470 right-of-way corridor currently located within town boundaries was zoned E470 Area Plan Development in 2012. The town proposes the same zoning for this section of E470 right-of-way, described as the E470 Area Right-of-way Northeast. Approval of this proposal will annex the last right-of-way section that lies within the municipal planning area and ensure consistent zoning for the entirety of the E470 corridor that lies within the town. The town originally considered annexing this portion of the E470 right-of-way at the time the adjacent Highlands at Kings Point PD was being annexed and zoned in 2017. Staff decided, however, to defer action on the E470 right-of-way at that time and focus upon the Highlands at Kings Point PD because of its commercial development potential and the minor nature of this boundary adjustment. Earlier this year, staff approached the E470 Highway Authority about this annexation and zoning and obtained their support for this action. The Parker 2035 Master Plan identifies this property as within the E470 mixed-use residential emphasis character area. This character area will provide high-density residential housing, senior housing, assisted living facilities, and mixed-use developments that include a commercial component. The property serves the transportation network for the adjacent properties in the area. As such, the proposed zoning is consistent with the goals and strategies of the master plan for the following reasons. It will help ensure adequate opportunities for expansion of the town's economic base. It will serve the commercial corridor along E470, and it will serve as an important component of the transportation network for existing and new residential development in this area. Annexation of the property will bring the entirety of the E470 corridor that lies within the town's municipal planning area within town boundaries. Staff has reviewed the required 9 criteria for zoning approval stated in the Land Development Ordinance and has determined that the project is consistent with the master plan and has satisfied the 9 criteria required to zone the property. On September 26, 2019, the Planning Commission voted 7-0 to recommend approval of the zoning to E470 area plan development. Staff and the Planning Commission recommend that Town Council approve the annexation and zoning of the E470 right-of-way northeast request. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Carolyn, thank you very much for your presentation. Council, do you have any questions for Carolyn on these items? Okay.
None at this time.
Seeing none, we'll open it up for public comment at 8:04 p.m. if there's anyone here wishing to address council on this item. Seeing none, we will close public comment at 8:05, and I would entertain further discussion or motions. Please remember you've got 4 different items in front of you guys.
Move to approve resolution number 19-060.
Second.
I have a motion from Josh and a second from Debbie. Council, please vote when the box pops up. Motion passes unanimously. Next item, A2.
I move to approve ordinance number 2.273 on second reading.
Second.
We have a motion from Josh and a second from Debbie. Council, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Next item.
I move to approve ordinance number 3.296.1 on second reading.
Second.
We have a motion from John and a second from Debbie. Council, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. And the final item on this one?
I move to approve the E470 right-of-way northeast annexation agreement based upon staff findings.
Second.
Motion by Josh and a second from Debbie. Council, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Next item on our agenda is item number 9A. This is ordinance number 13.109 on second reading. This is a bill for an ordinance amending Chapter 10.11 of the Parker Municipal Code concerning special districts. Kristen, lead us the way.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This ordinance amends Chapter 10.07 concerning special districts. In May, Town Council approved new special district service plan and intergovernmental agreement forms. So the purpose of this ordinance is to update Chapter 10.07 so that the annual reporting requirements match those intergovernmental agreement forms and special district service plan forms on what needs to be submitted as part of the annual report. It also adds the term bond or bonds to the definition of debt, clarifies the definition for public improvements, requires that the district boundary map be stamped by a registered professional engineer, and updates the application fees from $7,000 per service plan to $8,000 and from $250 per amendment to $4,000. This is to actually capture the costs of outside counsel review fees and staff time on reviewing amendments. We find that most of the time amendments are actually amended and restated service plans that require nearly as much review time by staff and outside counsel and the town attorney's office as an original service plan. And so this will be recapturing those costs on behalf of the town. I'm available for any questions.
Council, any questions for Kristen? Okay. Seeing none, we'll open it up for public comment at 8:09 p.m. This is the time that everyone freezes. They don't move, so I don't think that they're coming up. All right, nobody's coming up. All right, we'll close public comment at 8:09 p.m., and I would entertain further discussion or a motion, please.
I move to approve ordinance number 13.109 on second reading.
Second.
Motion by Josh and a second by John. Council, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Next item is item 9B. This is ordinance number 5.83 on second reading. This is a bill for an ordinance to add a new chapter 6.07 to the Parker Municipal Code to prohibit the sale of kratom. Kristen.
Good evening again. We have discussed kratom in a study session with the Parker Police Department. I do have here tonight Dr. Albanese from the Tri-County Health Department to address council. She did send you a letter, which is included in the packet, but I will have her come up once I introduce this item. It does add a new Chapter 6.07, which prohibits the sale of kratom in the town of Parker for human consumption. As you're aware, kratom is a herbal substance that comes from Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Papua New Guinea. The leaves can be made into a tea, chewed, or made into a capsule, and the active ingredients have effects similar to an amphetamine or opioids, and they have been used for various purposes such as pain relief. However, there are no FDA-approved uses for kratom, and it's currently imported into the United States marked not for human consumption. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration has warned consumers not to consume kratom, noting that it affects the same opioid brain receptors as morphine, appears to have properties that expose users to the risks of addiction, abuse, and dependence. The U.S. DEA is still weighing evidence to determine whether kratom should be labeled as a Schedule I drug. I'm available if there's any questions, but at this time I'd like to have Dr. Albanese come up and address the council if that's acceptable.
Okay. Council, any questions before we have the doctor come up? No? Come on out. If you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure, absolutely. Dr. Bernadette Albanese. I'm a medical epidemiologist at Tri-County Health Department. And so our address there is 6162 South Willow Drive in Greenwood Village. Thank you very much, Kristen, for having me here. So Honorable Mayor and Town Council members. I'm from Tri-County Health Department, the District Health Department of Douglas County in the town of Parker. And my comments reflect the perspective of Tri-County, but not necessarily the commissioners. As a physician, I am concerned about the potential of increasing sales of kratom in our jurisdiction. Our stance on kratom aligns with the U.S. Food and Drug Administration of the FDA, and Tri-County strongly recommends that the town of Parker ban any sale of kratom in its jurisdiction. As Kristen mentioned, for several years, the FDA has issued clear warnings about the use of kratom and has banned importation of kratom for human consumption as a drug or dietary ingredient. FDA does not consider kratom to be safe to consume because of lack of oversight of kratom's production overseas and adverse health effects. Kratom interacts in the brain like opioids. The FDA ban and warnings are based on reports about significant adverse health effects such as high heart rate, irritability, hallucinations, high blood pressure, liver damage, seizures, and death, including deaths in Colorado. Additionally, kratom is produced outside the U.S. from the leaves of a tropical tree in Southeast Asia. That means there are no systematic U.S. standards for kratom production, no quality control, and no safeguards to ensure the product being sold in the U.S. is free from impurities. In fact, in 2018, there was a salmonella outbreak associated with contaminated kratom products, and during that investigation, it was found that kratom also had heavy metal contamination. The FDA has federal authority over drugs and other products marketed as having a medical claim to treat a health condition. However, kratom has not been FDA approved as a drug, dietary supplement, or food ingredient. Despite these federal restrictions, the U.S. kratom industry still imports and actively markets kratom for human consumption to treat medical ailments, from pain to regulating mood, and as a way to wean off prescription opioids, despite absent nor inadequate scientific evidence to support these claims. Repeatedly, the kratom industry has been unable to provide scientific evidence to meet FDA criteria for kratom to be approved for therapeutic use. In public settings that I have attended, kratom industry has acknowledged that imported kratom can be adulterated or contaminated, that kratom can be addicting, that there are risks and unknown health effects of using kratom and other drugs, including opioids, that it's unknown whether kratom is contraindicated when using other prescription drugs, that the effects of using kratom while driving are unknown. People are using kratom without being fully informed about risks, proper dosing, contraindications, or drug interactions. There is a lack of accurate information on whether kratom actually works to treat their medical condition. It's also the responsibility of federal authorities, not local municipalities, to ensure a product being sold as a drug or dietary ingredient or food ingredient is safe and approved for use. Nor should local municipalities establish production regulations to ensure the safety or purity of kratom, which is another tactic that the industry attempts to do. However, given the current ambiguity in which kratom is being marketed, it is reasonable and appropriate for local municipalities to ban its sale. So in summary, Tri-County strongly recommends the town of Parker ban sales of kratom in its jurisdiction. The FDA does not consider kratom safe to consume, and there are significant warnings from the medical community about adverse outcomes, including death. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Council, do you have any questions? Josh?
Doctor, thank you so much for attending tonight. Usually on most matters, I'm a big fan of local control. There are some things, though, that I think that should be handled by the feds or even the state. What is the action at the federal level to even allow this or not allow this to come in, whether it's for human consumption or not?
Yeah, so, strictly speaking, kratom coming into the country is not illegal, depending on how it's labeled. It's just when it gets here, it gets repackaged and sold, and the only way to experience the effect of kratom is to ingest it.
Of course.
And so I actually attempted for about 3 weeks before this meeting to try to reach the FDA to try to get a little more clarity. But they have, publicly what they're disseminating and what they're sharing on their website are periodic attempts to confiscate the product that's being inappropriately sold. There's been numerous interactions with U.S.-based kratom wholesalers about their false marketing, about their misleading marketing, about trying to sell kratom to cure your ailment, which is clearly against FDA rules. And so I don't work for the FDA, so I don't know what their escalating procedures are, but there are, and I made reference to this in the letter that I sent you, there's been a number of warning letters sent to these companies saying, you can't do this. I mean, you can't say, take some kratom and it'll cure your opioid addiction or it'll help your mood or whatever. They're simply not. They're not permitted to do that. And however FDA goes through their process to mitigate that, I can't speak to that. Not being as familiar with their process. So, at this point in time, you know, in one way, it feels like things aren't moving fast enough. But on the other hand, you know, like I said, I can't speak to what the regulatory authority that the feds have to try to do something about this. So in the meantime, the question has come up for us periodically at Tri-County on you know, are there options that a local municipality can do? And our best recommendation is to simply ban the sales and basically keep it out of, you know, reduce the opportunities that someone can purchase it locally for their use. I mean, if people want this substance badly enough, there are ways to purchase it online and so forth. So it's really a local decision in terms of taking a stand to say we will eliminate the opportunity for someone to purchase this locally, understanding, you know, with some understanding that there really at this point risks with using it. I mean, you know, it's unusual to come before you to say that there's an herbal substance that could potentially kill you that is for sale and against all FDA recommendations. You know, I mean, you don't often sort of have that kind of opportunity to say, well, you know, so the concerns are significant enough. There may be a time and place in the future down the line when the industry can do or prepare the sufficient scientific evidence to, I mean, the FDA is there to make things that we put in our bodies to treat conditions safe, health conditions safe. That's their job. And so when you pick up Tylenol at the store, it has a label that's been approved and based on study on how much you're supposed to take and how often you're supposed to take it. You take it getting into flu season, right? You may be taking some over-the-counter medications to treat some of your cold symptoms. There's labeling on that has been based on scientific study that tells you what to take it with, how much, what not to take it with, when to consult your doctor. That stuff's not made up. That is based on science. And as physicians, for anything that we prescribe, we're completely reliant on the FDA to provide that information.
I guess that my wonder, though, is not from the pharmaceutical side or the supplement side. I'm wondering about the substance as far as Schedule 1, psilocybin. I mean, it's a naturally growing thing. So when does the Fed decide that this is a Schedule 1 drug?
The DEA entertained that, I might have my dates not quite right, probably 2 or 3 years ago, and there was pushback within Congress somewhere, somehow, that I don't really have a lot of any detail about.
Where the warehouses are?
You know, that they stopped that process. They were embarking on that process to make a Schedule 1, which would make regulating it that much easier. And then that process stopped, and I have not heard anything about reinitiating. So now it's sort of falling on the FDA side. And most of the tack that they have been taking is you can't market this as either a drug or a dietary supplement. The industry has actually attempted to get it approved as a dietary supplement, which is easier. Yeah. It's sort of the requirements are a bit different than a drug, like a prescribed drug, and they can't even meet that. So you know, and you can read the response to the industry representatives that to try to bring that forward and saying, you know, we give you what you're missing, you come back, you're not. Still not meeting our criteria. And I don't know how long it might take for them to reach it. And maybe one day they will. And so then the FDA can say, sure, this is a safe ingredient, it's a pure ingredient, and it works. Especially, it works. You're putting this in your body, and it actually works to treat the condition that you are interested in improving. And at this point, they can't get across they can't even get across purity standards. Okay. Never mind, does it actually do any good? So maybe there's some placebo effect, who knows? But I think the scale is tipping, weighing against any proven benefit, because there isn't any proven benefit versus potentially a lot of risk, especially, I mean, I was looking at some of our data on emergency room visits that might have been related to kratom, and just what some of those visits were about. And these are very, you know, the ones that I could find were very vulnerable individuals with polysubstance use and alcohol abuse, then adding kratom to their cocktail and really probably not having any idea what's going on. And many of the deaths that are reported ended up in individuals who had a lot of substance on board, and maybe kratom tipped them over to a point where they couldn't recover. But these are vulnerable individuals who may not really be capable of making the best decisions in terms of, well, I need to get off this, let me try some kratom to get off that, something like that.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you, Doctor.
Other questions? Nope. Thank you, Doctor. Appreciate it. We'll open it up for public comment at 8:22 p.m. if there's anyone here wishing to address council on this item. Seeing none, we'll close public comment at 8:22, and I would entertain further discussion or a motion, please.
A quick question.
Yes.
Michelle, he walked out, but have we identified the retailers in town that have this product, and have they been kept
Chief?
in the loop? Oh, there it is, sorry. Either way, have we identified the retailers in the community who sell this, and are they in the loop that tomorrow it goes away?
I don't think we've done any proactive
Okay.
stuff on that yet, council member.
Okay.
But we'll definitely get some folks out and do some education.
Okay.
But I don't think it goes in effect tomorrow. 10 days.
There's 10 days after I sign it.
But even so, Chief, it's not your practice to immediately start punitive. You'd go through an education process, let them know.
Yeah, we're not going to pull the handcuffs out right away.
Every 7-Eleven in the town just went, what?
Yeah. I think that's kind of our history usually, is to do education first and do a little bit of warnings, then we want compliance.
Okay. Other discussion items? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion, please.
I move to approve ordinance number 5.83 on second reading.
Second?
We have a motion from John and a second from Debbie. Council, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Next item up, item 9C. This is for ordinance number 9.301 on second reading. This was continued from September 16th, 2019. This is a bill for an ordinance approving the amended and restated intergovernmental agreement between Douglas County School District, RE1, and the Town of Parker regarding providing police officers to patrol elementary and middle schools and other facilities under the School Marshal Program. Chief King, rock and roll.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Good evening. As you stated, Mayor, this has been postponed, I think, twice now. We've been working diligently with the school district to bring this to your attention tonight. Kristen, Mary Lou from Finance has done a lot of great work, same with Deputy Chief Serapis. So tonight, we were asking you to pass in second reading. We're able to basically get funding to the tune of roughly $186,000 for police officers to patrol the elementary schools and some charter schools throughout the town. So we're asking you to go ahead and pass this. We feel like this was a good situation for our community and for the schools.
Okay. Council, do you have any questions for Chief? Cheryl?
Sure.
In previous discussions, Chief, we were talking about a 50-50 split in the cost. Does this amount represent that 50-50 split?
That's a good question. This program has been funded 100%, and so right now, there's no 50-50 split whatsoever. They're funding the 100% for a full-time officer, and there's quite a bit of overtime hours that we're able to get a second officer to pick up some of the patrolling.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Other questions? We'll open it up for public comment at 8:26 p.m. if there's anyone here wishing to address council. You know you're thinking about it. No? All right. We'll close public comment at 8:26, and I would entertain further discussion or a motion, please.
I'll move to approve ordinance number 9.301.
Second.
We have a motion from Cheryl. We have a second from Josh. Council, please vote. What happened? Wait, hold
I
up.
lost my screen.
Okay, just tell Chris what your vote.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. With no further business before council, we'll adjourn at 8:27 PM.